Good afternoon, people. Titus here for another Blender tutorial, and in this one we're going to be modeling an AR15 upper receiver. This will be a bit of a longer one, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. I got our reference image, so I got the front, I got the back, and then I also have a top-down view. I think starting off, let's work on the rail. So we'll do Shift-A, and then we'll add a cube. And then we're going to scale the cube down and try to fit it inside one of these teeth. Maybe something around there. And then we'll put it between the teeth. We'll scale it. In my case, it's going to be the X. And I want it kind of near the halfway point. I'm going to come to the top view and grab in the Y. And then I'm going to scale in the Y. And I want it to be as wide as the teeth, but before the kind of bevel there. So maybe go probably around there. I think that looks good starting off. Now you'll notice we have non-uniform scale, so we'll press Ctrl-A and apply the scale so it evens out. We can then go to our modifiers and add an array modifier, bump up the count a bit. We're going the wrong direction in my case, so I'm in the X, but I want to go -1. And then I'm going to go to my wireframe so I can see the selection a little bit easier. I'm going to bump the count up a bit. And then I'm going to grab the unit in object mode. And then I'll increase the count so it goes to the end. And what I need to do in edit mode is I need to select this one edge. And then I come to this side, grab in the X, hold Shift, and then kind of line it up so the little lines are kind of in the center of each tooth. And that looks pretty close. I can then tab into object mode, grab, and push it over one more. And then I need to bump my count, that looks like 2 more times. I want it to stop at the end piece here, and I don't want it to extend past the beginning piece here. This looks pretty good so far. Let's go back in edit mode, and we're going back to solid. We're going to press Ctrl-R, add a loop cut in the middle with 3 segments. We'll do Ctrl-R, add a loop cut down center. I'm going to come to top view and scale in the Y, hold Control so it snaps out in increments. That way I get that Picatinny tail kind of look there. And that looks pretty good. We'll go back to front view. I need a loop cut at the bottom for the base. And then I come to face mode with 3 or select here. And then I can press C for circle select, and I'm just going to paint in these faces here. And then press X, delete those faces. So we kind of have this shape here. I'll press 2 for edge mode, hold Alt, select this inside edge. I need to deselect the top selections here. And now I can right click, go to Loop Tools, and do Bridge. And that'll fill in that space there. Loop Tools is a free add-on. You can add that in your preferences window under add-ons. I can then come to Face Select, delete these extra faces here. I also don't need these faces here, and I can re-add these faces later. That way I don't have any duplicates, because there's going to be some duplicated geometry here. Now if I tab in object mode, this looks pretty good. What I can do is I can apply the array modifier, go back into edit mode, press 1 for vertex, press A to select all, and then press M to merge by distance. This is going to remove, looks like 96 vertices in my case, because there was overlapping geometry. Now we want to be able to do loop cuts. So if I do Ctrl-R, I want to be able to loop cut all the way through. So I got to be careful when I'm filling these end pieces in. So like as an example, let me go to edge select, and we'll go to top view. And if I grab this edge here, press G then X, kind of extend that out, and bring it back just a bit. I'm going to line it up with this reference image. But you'll notice if I press F to fill, and then I try to do a loop cut with Control-R, you notice the loop cut kind of stops right here, and that's because that's an end gone. So what I can do is go to vertex select, select these bottom vertices, press F, and then these next ones up, F to fill those, shift select, F, and then 2 to go to edge select, and then basically fill each of these edges out like so. And if you do it that way, when you do your loop cuts, you'll notice they go all the way through. May not matter in this case, but it's good to keep in mind because that way it gives you the option in case you do a subsurf modifier and you need to tighten up your geometry. But yeah, so let's go ahead and line up the other side. So we will select this edge here, grab in the X, right about there, and then we'll press E to extrude in the X, or yeah, in the X axis, and then we're going to scale in the Y, bring it down. This one's a little tricky. We'll go to vertex select. I need to even out these edges to be flush with the with this vertex, so I can select it, do Shift S, put the cursor there, change my pivot point to be 3D cursor, and I can select these other vertices. I don't need to select this one because it's already lined up. You can scale it in the Y to 0, and it'll snap those vertices in line with that one. And I can just repeat that over here. And if you want to select the bottom one, you can, doesn't matter. Scale Y 0, lines them up, and that looks a lot better. So now we'll come back to top view, edge select, highlight here, G, then X, oh sorry, E, then X, and I'm gonna do right about there. So we kind of have this shape going on right now. I'm gonna go to vertex select. Let's fill out this end gone back here. Let's make it all quads. Oops, select here. And then 2, shift select, fill, shift select F to fill. And now I can do a Control R, and that's going to cut all the way through on both sides. Just makes it a bit easier. And then if I go back to top view, 1 to vertex select, select these vertices here, and then I can grab, bring that out here. Looks good. 2 to edge select, I can hold Alt. And then what you can do is do Control B. And then you can kind of bevel this out. Probably don't need that many segments. I can probably get away, what was that, 7 segments? I think that looks okay. And then what I'll do is grab in the X and just line it up a little bit better. And then if I wanted to, I can select this loop, scale in the Y, and it's on 3D cursor, which actually kind of works for me because then it shifts it down. But if you want it even, do individual origins. That way it'll kind of spread out a little bit evenly. Don't have to be perfect in line with the reference image. And then what you can do is, if you're using hard ops, press Q sharpen, or you can just right click shade smooth, go to your object properties, and then auto smooth there, and that'll clean up any of that geometry. And if you don't like this edge the way it is, it's easy enough, just 2, oops, hold Alt, and then you can G then grab in the X, just bring it closer, and it'll kind of clean up that geometry there. So you get a nice rail. Now the problem with the rail, the way it is now, is if you go to top view, it kind of washes out. What you can do is go to your modifier stack and add a bevel. Or again, if you're using hard ops, just press Q, bevel, and then I'm going to do something small, like maybe a width of 20. And then that way it kind of shows up a little bit nicer from any straight on view like you see here. All right, so I think we got the rail done. So we could probably move on to the actual body. Yeah, let's do Shift A. We'll add a cylinder, and then we're going to do a 24 vertice cylinder. We'll rotate along the Y, 90 degrees. Gotta scale it pretty far down. And scale it in the X. And then what we're looking to do is match up right about here. Top is right there, and then we need to scale just a little bit more. You're looking at something around this size. Now the X is a little bit far, so we'll scale it down just a bit. That looks about right. So we have non-uniform scale. So Control A, we'll do rotation scale. Looks good. We can then come into edit mode with tab. We'll do face select. We'll select the front face and the back face. Press X, delete those faces. Go back into edit mode and let's just line up our top reference real quick. So we'll do grab in the Y. And I think we're right about there. All right, back into edit mode, one for vertex select. We're gonna line up the back face here. So we'll grab these vertices, GG to edge slide, and then we'll deselect one and just edge slide along until we build out a selection that kind of makes sense here. Although that one doesn't look too bad. I think maybe we will keep it like that. Yeah, I think we'll keep it like that. We need an edge loop there, so we'll do Control R. Bring that over here. And then let's go ahead and line it up as best we can. Probably right around there. That looks good. Then we need another edge loop right over here. And then what we can do is go to edge select, hold Alt. We're gonna select this front ring. And then we can press E to extrude, press X to lock it in the X axis. And then we'll give a little lip, and then E to extrude, X to lock it in the X axis. And then that one should drag out pretty far, so it lines up with our reference images here. And that looks about right. Now if we wanted to, we could probably make these faces a little bit smaller, which I think actually I will do. So let's hold Alt, we'll select that selection here. We're going to scale Shift X, and we're just going to bring it down just a smidge. So it kind of looks like that. Now the next thing we'll want to do is we're going to want to build up the top selection, but we're going to need to flatten out some faces. So I'm going to do these top 4 faces here. And I want to go all the way to about here. And then with individual origins selected, you can scale in the Z to 0. That'll create a nice flat base. And with that, we can actually extrude up. And then we can use in vertex select here. We can GG and move this edge slide to right about here. And then go back to face select. And then we're going to select these top 4 faces all the way over. And then we can E to extrude, go about midway, and then E to extrude. And then we'll go to 1 for vertex select and in transparency mode. Do that there. And I think this needs to be up just a smidge, maybe right about there. So that's our shape so far. It's looking pretty good. We got a number of distinctive elements that we got to address here. We got our ejection port, we got the shell deflector, we got the forward assist, and we have the lower receiver assembly holes here. I think we'll tackle these first because it's low-hanging fruit and they're relatively easy. So let's go ahead and in face select mode, we are going to select bottom 4 faces, maybe right about there. And then we will carry that selection through. To all the way over here. This looks good. And just like before, we can scale Z 0. And that'll create a nice flat base for that. We can then select these 2 faces and these 2 faces. We want to create an inset, so press I for inset, and then if you press B for boundary, you want to make sure that the back lip connects. So in my case, boundary's off. And then I'm going to give myself something decent, maybe right around there. And then I am just going to extrude, pull that down here. That looks good. And then I'm also going to just go ahead and add a subsurf modifier, bump it to 2, right click shade smooth. That way I can see kind of what I'm working with here. Now to create the holes, we'll just do a edge loop here and an edge loop across. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. We'll do an edge loop, Control R, and then Control R with another edge loop across. And then I'm going to Shift Alt, and select that cross. Now what we can do is add a bevel with Control B. The inner square is going to be the size of the hole. I'm going to add 3 segments because I find that works best with that. You can get away with just the 2. So either way, I guess, if you're trying to really keep it low topology. I'm going to hold it here. I'm going to press 3 to go to face select, and then I can use my C for circle select and paint these inside faces. So to get the front and the back there, I can right click, go to loop tools, choose circle, and then right click, loop tools, bridge. So then we got this sort of shape. And then we just need to do that for the other side here. So Alt Z, C for circle select, paint the inside faces, right click, loop tools, circle, right click, loop tools, bridge. Loop tools is of course free add-on you can get in your preferences. Now it's going to look a little washed out, but that's okay. Don't follow along with this step, but towards the end, once we get all our main pieces or main accents done, we're going to add supporting loops so we can go through each of the shapes, and then we can add bevels in all sorts of different areas, and it's going to tighten up your geometry, so you're going to get a much better result. So don't worry about too much if it looks a little washed out right now. We'll fix that at the end. So I'm going to undo those steps there. Let's work on the ejection port. So we got a loop here that we can use. We need a loop on this side, so we'll do Control R, add that right there. Press 3 for face select. I'm gonna start with this face and then hold Control. I'm gonna use these faces here. And then what I can do is just press I for inset. And just get myself a nice boundary there. And I'll press 1. I'm going to deselect the inside vertices here. Shift S, cursor to selected, so it kind of gets in the middle. Scale on the X, and then I'm just going to give myself a slight offset here. And make sure your pivot point, which mine was not, is 3D cursor. So scale X, and I'll try that again. I'm going to deselect these inside vertices here, scale on the X, and this will give me more of my circular shape that I was going for. I'll press 3 for face select, select these faces here, and then we can press E to extrude, and then I to inset, E to extrude, X to delete faces. And we have this shape here. When we add our subsurf, it's going to clean it up. It still looks a little washed out, don't worry. We do Control R, don't follow along with this. We add a supporting loop here. Control R, add a supporting loop here. And you're going to get a much better ejection port. But again, I'm going to undo that because we're going to do that at the very end. Let's work on the shell deflector. So that's going to be this piece right here. This one's a little tricky too, so we need a loop on this side. So Control R, add a loop here. I'm going to press 1, go to vertex select. I'm going to Shift S cursor there. Then I'm going to Control select these. I'm going to scale in the X to 0 using my 3D cursor as the pivot point, so it lines these edges up. And then I need another loop cut, so I'll do Control R. And I'll put that right there. And then I'm going to do the same, Shift S, cursor there, Control select, scale X 0. Gives me a nice straight cut. Now I need to shape out the deflector piece here, so I guess this vertex here can edge slide in a bit. This vertex can go in, as can this one, and we can edge slide this one around so it keeps the shading right. And then I think these 4 over here we can GG. Alright, let me do this one once, and then these 2. Kind of like that. And I think that follows the shape pretty well. And then we'll use this loop down here. Now if we're going to do the deflector, we might as well do this piece here as well. So I think starting off, I am going to do, should I do 3 or I think I'll do 2. It does go down all the way there. Maybe I'll do 3. Okay, so we'll do face select. We're going to do this one here, these 3 there. So I think that's going to be my selection there. And then I'm just going to shift select, get all these faces here. That looks about right there. All right, let's give this a go. So we're going to do we'll do a small boundary for an inset. Then we're going to E to extrude, press Y, and I'm going to extrude out in the Y axis. And I'm going to go maybe right about there. I switch my pivot point to be individual origins, scale in the Y to 0, flatten them out. And then I need to figure out how I'm going to shape this. So I'm happy with these pieces here. For that'll be for the ejection port cover. But for these faces, I need to scale them, I think. So let's figure that out. So let's scale in the Z. Bring it down a bit, like that. Let's come top view, grab in the Y, bring it out a bit, give it a quick gander. Okay, Then what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go to edge select with 2. I'm gonna control click. I'm gonna grab these edges right here. And then I'm gonna GG, edge slide them up here. And then I'm gonna have to repeat that step for each of these edge loops, I believe. So let's do this one first. And then control select so we get that edge loop there. GG. Doesn't look too bad. Now in the reference, it's actually a lot further out, as you can see, so we will experiment with that. I think it's a bit too far, but the point of that is to block a bullet or a shell casing from hitting you in the face, so maybe it actually does go out that far. So grab, pull it out here. And it looks comically large, but we're looking at this really close, so I guess maybe that is about right. And then if you wanted to, you can select your vertices here. You can do a GG and edge slide them back down and kind of tighten that loop up if you wanted to. So it kind of looks more like that. I don't think I mind it like this, so I'm going to keep it this way. And again, don't worry about the shape being washed out like with the weird artifacting. When we add a edge loop, it's going to clean up and you're not going to have any issues, but we got to do that at the end. So we'll kind of keep it here. So, all right, so we got their ejection port, we got the shell deflector. I think we will work on the forward assist next.